Okay, let's review a little bit algebra-wise for our test coming up tomorrow on Thursday. A lot of story problems, a lot of things really to kind of keep track of, but you got to be able to read the questions first very carefully and look for important pieces of information. The first kind of story problems we did were the consecutive integers as well as consecutive evens and odds. Remember, when you do those, you always call the first one x. That's important. Always call the first one x. Maybe I'm a little too high there. After that, if they're just consecutive, such as like 4, 5, 6, our second one's x plus 1, our third one and so on, x plus 2, they go up by 1 each time. However, if they're evens or odds, this may seem kind of weird, if they're evens or odds, you add 2 and then 4. You add the same thing if it's both an even or an odd. Why does that work? Think about an example of an even situation. 4, 6, 8. Don't they go up by 2 each time? Same thing with an example of an odd. 5, 7, 9. Consecutive odds. Don't they go up by 2 each time? So you get it set up and then read the question. It might say, do the sum of all of them. It might say something like 3 times the second, which if that's the case, it's 3 and then parentheses, whatever the second is. It may say their sum is less than. If that's the case, you don't do an equal sign, you do an inequality, a less than symbol. So make sure that you read the question and then you answer the question very closely. Next section, 2 big words we learned, complement and supplement. Whenever you see those words, for complement, you're going to write 90 minus x, and supplement 180 minus x. Remember how we can remember that? C is before S. When you count, 90 is before 180. S can also somewhat look like an 8 if you manipulate it a little bit. The other part of that section is whenever you see a triangle question, what do the 3 angles of a triangle always add to give you? Pause for dramatic effect, but it's 180 degrees. So you add all 3 angles and set it equal to 180. Then we get into the problems we use the charts for. Our first chart was the motion problems. And so these are the ones where we're going to have the rate times the time equals the distance. I'll put that at the bottom as well in case the screen cuts it off. Rate times time is distance. Now there's 3 situations. One of them is if someone takes off and then someone else takes off to catch them. So if they go the same direction, someone takes off with a head start, someone takes off to catch them, when do they pass? When do they meet? Well, in that situation, the 2 distance columns are equal. One is when you go out and then back. In that situation, the 2 distance blocks are equal. The time when they're not equal, if it says opposite directions, it says one goes east, one goes west. If they go opposite directions, you take the 2 distances, distance 1, distance 2, you add them to equal the total distance. Now, things to keep track of there. If it says something like, for the trip, the total time was 6 hours. If you don't know either individual time, but the total time was 6 hours, you do x and then total minus x. That's big for this whole unit. Do x and the total minus x. If somebody has a head start, what if person A has a 2-hour head start of person B and you don't know either time? Well, person B, who started later, would just be x. The person who started earlier, the 2-hour head start, would have x plus 2. And remember, in all of these problems, the last column is the freebie column. You multiply going across. Okay. Other problems, well, we did the 2 with the 9 squares, the 9 boxes, the liquid and the dry mixture. And again, you just kind of have to read the questions closely. If it's a dry mixture, it's like price per pound. Again, you may not be able to see that, so I'll put it down there as well. If they give you like price per unit, cheap, expensive, mix. So cheap, expensive, mix. So the smallest price, the most expensive price, the middle price. focus your attention on the middle column, the amount column. Because when you do that column, folks, it's real simple. One of these first two is going to be your x. One of those first two, let me adjust my height a little bit so you can see maybe a little bit better. One of those first two is going to be x. There we go. The other one, it just depends. Let's say that this is x and this is 15. If I give you the number there, add going down. This is x plus 15. But if I don't give you this number, if I give you the total, it's just like the round trips. If I give you the total, this is x and then the total minus x. So you've got to read the question closely. Which number do they give you? Which of these two is your x? And then what are the other two? If it's total, then it's total minus x. If it's the piece, then the bottom is x plus that number. Last column, freebie. If it's a percent question, if they give you 3%, it's the same idea, small, big, middle. If they only give you 2%, this is 0 or 100. How do I decide? Well, am I getting increased or am I decreasing? If I'm increasing from the start to the final, then I use 100. If I'm decreasing from the start to the final, then I use 0. Hope that kind of makes some common sense there, but read that question closely. The last type that I can think of off the top of my head right now are the coin problems. But they don't have to be just coin. They could be tickets like student and adult, balcony orchestra. We did like a hamburgers and a Cokes example. But look for tickets. Again, this is price. This is still amount. And the last column is still when you multiply going across. This will be the same as I just mentioned. Here you have to just kind of read what the problem says. Remember, I always do one more row than what they mention. If they mention pennies, nickels, and dimes, I do a fourth row for the total. In terms of the coins, look and see which coin do they reference twice. Which coin do they use twice in the problem? That one will be our x, and hopefully that helps you. The x is always the one we're comparing the others to, but it'll be the one that we see twice. Beyond that, I think you're going to be okay. The majority of the problems you use the last column, and you always add going down, and you set it equal to the bottom block. But, like the quiz we just took, I did not tell you the total value. I did not tell you that one. So you knew I think there were 42 total coins. If that's the case, you use the middle column. Add going down and set it equal to 42. Hope that's a little quick synopsis of the last few weeks of class. You can do well on this, but you've got to read critically and then put numbers in the appropriate spots. You can use a calculator to solve. Remember, the last column's the freebie. Multiply across, and then your equation is adding down and setting equal to the bottom block. Good luck. Let me know if you have any questions, and we'll see you on test day.